Hello everyone. So in today's lecture we will be discussing transformation of variables in the context of regression model. So here are the contents of today's lecture. Introduction to the notion of transformation of variables, then linearizable functions and transformations to stabilize variance. So let us first try to understand what do we mean by transformation of variables. So by transformation of variables in this lecture, we are going to consider only response variable. So in the context of regression models, the response variable is assumed to follow normal distribution, and this assumption comes because we impose the assumption of normality on the residuals. So, but it's not necessary that each time the kind of data that we handle will have normality. For example, if our data indicates kind of count data, then it's possible that it follows binomial or Poisson model and not necessarily a normal model. So then the residuals obviously won't have normality, and then in that case the usual assumptions may also fail. In some cases, it is also possible that the other assumptions related to the model are not fulfilled by the data. So, the assumptions may be about the linear relationship between the response variable and the regressor, or it could be the assumption of variance being constant. So, there are certain transformations when applied on the response variable give the necessary result. That is, in case of non-normal response variable, the transformation helps in achieving normality. In case of heteroscedastic model, that is model with non-constant variance, the transformation helps in stabilizing the variance, that is making the variance the same for all values of the regressor. So let us consider these transformations here. So now let us first consider transformations which help in linearizing the function. Now in regression model, we assume that the relationship between the response variable and the regressor is linear in nature. So, but if it is not linear, then the linear model setup won't work. So here are certain examples. The first one is the usual simple linear regression. The second one is a quadratic model. Even though the model technically follows multiple linear regression setup, the matrix setup, but a quadratic term of the regressor is included in the model, and so for the sake of convenience, the model is referred to as a quadratic model. Now, in the third case, the model is beta naught plus beta 1 log x plus epsilon. So, here instead of the usual regressor, we have performed a transformation on the regressor instead of the response. So but again it won't be, so x and y in this case won't have linear relationship, that is for sure. Similarly here, instead of x, the linear relationship is fulfilled between y and root x. Similarly, for the third model, the linear relationship is fulfilled between y and log x and not y and x. So the assumption of linearity between y and x will automatically is not possible then here. So but all these models are linear, still linear in nature, because the parameters are entering the model linearly. So this is a non-linear model, but because here beta 1 is not entering the model linearly, instead it is included in the exponential term. So all these are the examples of linear models, and this is a non-linear model. So so now how do we recognize whether a given model is non-linear model? So one simple way to judge that is the scatter plot between the response variable and the regressor. If the scatter plot tells you that there is no linear pattern, in fact there is a curve, then it could be quadratic or it could be exponential. So to understand this better, we should know how the exponential graphs look or how the polynomial functions look. So to get a better understanding, I have included here graphs of alpha x raised to beta, which is a power function, and I have taken different values of beta here. So I have taken alpha to be equal to 1 and beta to be equal to, for the first figure, beta is taken as minus 1.5, 1.5, and for the second figure, beta is taken as minus 1.5, minus 1, and minus zero point 0.5. So here I have included the code to create these graphs also for your convenience. So this is how the graphs look. So in figure 1, we have beta equal to, let me just go back a bit. For the figure 1, beta is equal to minus 1.5, 1, and 1.5. So here it is. So as you can notice that this is how the graphs are. So this is increasing but at a slower rate. Then this is strictly linear, and then this one is increasing but at a much faster rate. So similarly for the second model, again the graphs look like this. So obviously when x is equal to 1, these graphs intersect each other. So similarly, figure 3 uh, displays the graph of alpha e raised to x. Figure 3 and 4 display the graphs of alpha e raised to x and alpha e raised to minus 2x. And figure 5 and 6 display the graphs of alpha plus 5 log x and alpha minus 5 log x. So 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. So alpha plus 5 log x, so clearly it's an increasing function. Alpha minus 5 log x, so clearly it's a decreasing function. So now let us try to understand better by considering an example. So here I am showing you a graph of a scatter plot of y against x. So the example we will discuss it, but let me know if you feel it is to be normal. Spend a couple of seconds here to be linear. So yes, it does give you an impression that it is linear, but the thing is, if you try to visualize the graph from this point onwards, then yes, it is possible that if we wish to include all the points in the graph, a curve may give us a better picture. Okay, so let us see. Let us first get to know the context. So here is the example. So basically, it's about number of surviving bacteria as estimated by platelet counts in an experiment with marine bacterium following exposure to the 200 kilovolt X-rays for periods ranging from T1 to 15 intervals of 6 minutes. So the response variable represents here the number of surviving bacterium after exposure time T. So exposure time T is the regressor, and the number of bacteria which survived is the response variable. So now obviously the graph, even though partly it is linear, if we consider all the points together, then it gives a impression of a curve. So and in fact, if we try to fit this kind of curve alpha e raised to x beta by taking alpha equal to 310 and beta equal to minus 0.15, then this curve looks somewhat like the scatter plot given in the shown earlier. So how did I get these numbers 310 and beta minus 0.15? So I tried by trial and error. I have got these numbers. So I tried to fit different alpha e raised to x beta. So obviously one can do the fitting of curve properly and can get it. But I just wanted to get some idea, so I have taken these numbers. But this is not necessary. I'm just trying to tell you that it is not a linear graph and one can fit the curve of this type. So what we do then is that we try to make a transformation. So what kind of transformation is possible? That question you may have in mind. How do we decide the transformation then? So there is a bunch of transformations which can be used in such a case, which I'll show you a table here table, somehow the tables are appearing at the end of the entire node. So I have, but here it is. So if the relationship between y and x is of this type, alpha y is alpha x raised to beta, then the transformation y dash is means the transformation to be applied on the response variable is log y, and then in that case, and on the regressor it is log x, and then the relationship between the new response and the new regressor then becomes linear in nature, the way we usually expect it. And so by applying this table, we can see that we can linearize the regression function. So let us then apply log transformation. So in this example, we have applied a log transformation on the response variable. So here we are. I'm sorry. Yes, here we are. So if we just try to fit the usual regression model, see, the trouble is, okay, it gives good adjusted R square, looks promising. All beta naught and beta 1 are significant. But if we look at the residual analysis, the residuals don't seem to be uncorrelated. You can see the pattern, and here again the pattern is evident. If we look at the residuals, the plot of residuals against the fitted values, then there is an opening funnel type pattern, clearly indicating that the variance is not constant. Now here I have tried to get the curve alpha x e raised to minus x beta, and if I plot that curve, then yes, it does give you some idea that yes, something of this type could be the relationship between x and y. And so we are applying now log transformation on y alone. So instead of applying transformation on both x and y, first I have tried to apply transformation on y, the response variable. If that works, then we don't need to apply transformation on x. So I apply transformation on the response variable, log transformation on the response variable, and I fit the model again. So look at the adjusted R square. So it increases drastically from zero point 0.8, it has gone to 0.98. And if I check the residual analysis, then yes, now there is no correlation among the residuals. So they look to be uncorrelated. Then the plot of residuals against the fitted values, that also shows no pattern. So all model related assumptions are fulfilled, they are in place. And so yes, this definitely gives an impression that we have been successful in stabilizing the variance and getting a better model here. So this transformation we could identify by referring to the table 1. Again, now you would have this question: how do we know whether this is giving good fitted values for the original data? Because we have got great fitted values for logarithm of the response variable, no? So let us come back to the original. So to get the original values, we will have to consider exponential of the fitted values of this new model. So we do that, and if we then impose it on the original data, then this is the fitted line, and yes, it definitely looks better than the earlier one. So yes, log transformation works here better to in linearizing the model. Now let us consider another scenario wherein we need transformation to stabilize the error variance, that is to make the error variance constant for all the observations. Now the constancy of error variance is one of the standard assumptions, and if we so the assumption, this is also referred to as the assumption of homoscedasticity. So when the variance is not constant, then the problem is referred to as the heteroscedasticity. So usually it is detected by looking at the scatter plot of residuals against the fitted values or the regressor. But another way is also there. So if your data set contains ties, That is, if the data set contains multiple values of response variable for the same value of regressor, then one can estimate the variance for each bunch of unique value of regressor, and then one can apply the Bartlett's test to check whether the variance is same or not. So Bartlett's test, even though I have not mentioned it here, yes, it is definitely a way to check whether the variance is constant or not. So in the example that we are going to discuss, I have applied Bartlett test. So this heteroscedasticity, that is unstable variance, this problem also can be removed by means of a suitable transformation. Now, how do we identify this transformation? So, let us refer to the last page for the same. So, the transformation depends on the relationship of the variance with the mean. Now, you would ask, why do I have to look at the mean? So, see, in the context of regression model, the mean is a function of response variable. Mean is a function of regressor. So mean of the response variable is beta naught. So if we consider simple linear regression model, it is beta naught plus beta 1 x, but the variance is sigma square. So variance is not a function of mean. So so this other, in other words, we can say that if there is a kind of unstabilization in the variance, then it is possible that that instability is coming because of the relationship, because of the dependency on the regressor. So if the regressor values change, and then accordingly the variance changes, if the data or the scatter plot of the response variable and against the regressor tells you that the variance changes as the regressor values change, then we would say that the variance is not constant. But in other words, it also will mean that the variance is a function of regressor x. And so in that case, instead of sigma square, we are dealing with sigma square x, sigma square which is a function of x. But the mean of the response variable is already a function of x. So obviously we are handling two functions of the regressor here. And so we are coming back to the original point, that is, when the variance is unstable, then to identify the appropriate transformation, we should look at the relationship of the variance with the mean of the response variable. So when this sigma square is proportional to constant, then you don't need obviously any transformation. That is the usual regression model. When this sigma square is proportional to expected y, means a linear function of x. By this they mean a linear function of x. Then the appropriate transformation is square root of y, because then it is most likely that the data is coming from Poisson distribution. Similarly, if sigma square is proportional to the product of expected y and 1 minus expected y, then the appropriate transformation is sine inverse root of y. Similarly, if sigma square is proportional to multiple powers of different powers of expected y, then accordingly the transformation changes. If it is expected y square, then it is the logarithmic transformation is needed. It expected y cube, then reciprocal square root transformation. And if it is expected y raised to 4, then inverse transformation is needed. So all these are transformations to be made on the response variable. So now let us apply this knowledge on an example. So now this is a different example. A building maintenance company is planning to submit a bid on a contract to clean corporate offices scattered throughout an office complex. The costs incurred by the maintenance company are proportional to the number of cleaning crews needed for this task. Now recent data are available for the number of rooms that were cleaned by varying number of crews. So for a sample of 53 days, the records were kept of the number of crews used and the number of rooms that were cleaned. Now this data set I'll share on the Google Classroom. Both the data sets I'll share. So if we look at the scatter plot of the response variable, that is the number of rooms cleaned and the number of crews employed that day wise. This is a day wise data for 53 days. Then the graph looks like this. So if you notice, when only two people are there, then there is less variation. But if the number of people increase, say 10 or 12 or 14, 16, then compare this with the 2 or 4, then there is, for 2 or 4, or for 2 or 6, there is lesser variation. But whereas for 10 or 16, there is more variation in the response variable values. And so it's clearly a case of heteroscedastic data, so where there is no stability in the variance. So let us try to confirm this by applying the usual regression model and then looking at the graphs of residuals. So we fit the usual regression model, and then yes, this, it doesn't look like nothing. It definitely looks like there is some pattern, something is happening here. But okay, for a time, for the time being, we can ignore this, but this can't be ignored, no? You can notice that for when there is a large value 60 plus, then so much it is moving across the entire graph. But whereas when the value is small, then it's only 10, then there is much lesser variance. So definitely the variance is not constant, but normality assumption is fulfilled. And if we apply Bartlett less test, then the Bartlett test is getting rejected at 5% level of significance, clearly indicating that the variance is not constant. So what do we do then? So as discussed earlier, because this is a count data, so we assume it to follow Poisson or binomial distribution. So let us see. So let us assume that it follows Poisson distribution. Then the appropriate transformation is root transformation, and we need to apply it on both. Here we are trying to apply it on both response variable as well as regressor. But we will see. Means I had tried it, but you can try applying it for only response variable and see what kind of model you get. So here I have applied root transformation on both response variable and regressor. So if I do that, then the graph somewhat looks like this, the graph of the new response and the new regressor. And if I fit the usual, yes, definitely this is better than the earlier graph, but still we may have the doubt whether there is, the variation is constant or not. So let us check this through residual analysis. So as of now, the model looks better. 0.8879 is the adjusted R square. Now let us look at the normality check. So yes, the normality of residuals is fulfilled. Look at the graph of residuals against fitted values. So here, see, same amount of variation you will find. So it is definitely, compare this graph with this graph and you will get the idea. See here, so small here, and here at 60 it is so large. Now compare this graph with this graph. So definitely it has moved away, and it is somewhat same. So this at 4 and again at 8, it is somewhat same. So you can say that, and we can be extra sure by applying the Bartlett test. So Bartlett test is also accepting the hypothesis of homogeneity of variances. And again, there is no pattern now in this graph. So yes, all model related assumptions are fulfilled, and so we can say that this is a better model. So but see here, it's a lot of trial and error is happening here. It's not like root transformation we applied on both response and regressor. What if I don't apply any transformation on regressor? Then do we get a better model? So are we going to do this trial and error business each time we fail these problems, or is there a better way? So yes, there is a better way to find the appropriate transformation, and this better way is developed by Box and Cox. And the transformation is famously known as Box-Cox transformation. So we shall discuss this in the next lecture. Enough for now.